kind
Okay.
of an agreement
There you
thing. I work for TILF, but I've been helping the P-CAR thing kind of relaunch.
Oh, no way.
So
Nice.
I was, Renee had sent over some old documents to go
Okay.
through, and I was like, I recognize that name from my.
Cool. Are you Pierce County based?
Pardon?
Are you Pierce County based, or?
I'm not. I'm in King, and I'm a director for TILF. I run our food access programming.
Okay.
But I'm just helping them as like a facilitator to
Okay.
get rolling again.
Cool.
So yeah.
Is Dan Muir still doing the coordination?
I'm sorry?
Is Dan Muir still doing the
No,
coordination?
he's not with the group right now. So
Okay.
it's like Mike Petit,
Love Mike.
Nisha, Renee, Sarah Howard, and Nate Lewis from the Farmland Trust.
Sure.
So kind of a smaller group right now as this year was really just figuring out like what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so and
For
you know
sure.
what is needed really
Yeah.
more than anything. So
Well, I understood too the PCAR had kind of not morphed into, but like taken a back seat to the monthly or bi-monthly meetings.
right.
I can't remember what that one's called.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. Yeah, I think really what they're aiming to do just as like a group of different organizations, a group of other service providers is just help amplify all of their different messages so farmers know what resources are available.
Sure.
And then but also kind of engaging the rest of the food system, whether it's, markets and, those sort of channels as well.
Sure.
So I think that they went through a very formal process to realize they want to not be a very formal group.
Oh, interesting.
So, but I think, their goal is just to help get the word out about what's going on.
Sure. Cool.
So, yeah. Let me. I'm gonna step out for 1 second.
Okay.
I know Sundays are always tough.
I know, I would never stay.
Towards the end of the.
Do you still need an audience, or?
Yeah, I think we're trying to figure that out.
I'm not clear on your topic, so I'm curious about the whole idea of a mobile farmers market.
Yeah, we've been doing it for a couple years now.
Yeah.
It is complicated.
I'm sorry?
It's very complicated.
Oh, in terms of, my assumption is that you have a new location, move from location to location, is that?
Yeah, we basically set up around 8 mini farmers markets a week.
Wow.
We are a wholesaler essentially from local farms, and we buy it from the farmers, bring it to low income, low supermarket access neighborhoods.
Wow.
And then set the market up, and we usually do 2 a day.
Wow.
Yes. It's
Wow.
good though. We take and match SNAP food stamps.
But do you return to locations similar, repetitively on a schedule?
Yep.
Yep, we do the same 8 every week.
Okay.
There will be virtual.
So that just seems like you've established a market site that's a temporary thing. How does that equate with being a mobile market?
I guess we call it a mobile market based on other mobile market models around the country.
Okay.
So, we have a refrigerated truck and we bring the food to multiple sites in a day. I'd say that makes us mobile.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
Terry said it's up to you. So you're welcome to just kind of Q&A it if you want, or.
I want to defer to you. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, literally Terry just said it's up to her if she's comfortable with it. So I don't know. Like I said, I know we do live stream.
is there a
or-
way to see if anybody's signed
or
in?
record it, so there's folks that maybe, I know a fair number of people registered remotely,
Okay.
so.
If you can do a Reader's Digest condensed version, I'd
Yeah,
love to see.
what if I just do a short
Well,
version?
Spin
Yeah.
through, tell your story.
Yeah.
What you want to do,
Yeah,
how you
that sounds good.
did it, what got you started in it, who are your people,
Sure.
that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Those would be the questions I'd have.
Okay. Well, let's do
Yeah,
it.
we'll keep you busy, the two of us.
Well, I want to give you two.
Thank
these
you.
done. These are basically just like planning considerations if you ever wanted to launch a mobile farmers market. So I'm Annika. I was the executive director of Tacoma Farmers Market until last month. I can take this off if I'm talking. Okay. Yeah, I was the executive director until last month of Tacoma Farmers Market, and I recently stepped down to go to grad school, which is, different than running a farmers market. So I am staying on with TFM for a while to help smooth the transition to the next executive director. But the mobile farmers market is something that I launched for the organization last year when COVID-19 hit. So I'm going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about 3 critical concepts for launching a mobile farmers market. And since there are literally only 2 of you in the room, if you want to just tell me real quick before we get into this, your names, associations, and what your interest is in learning about this, that would be great.
Go ahead.
My name's Carrie. I'm the Market Programs Director for Tilth Alliance. So I run our food access programming, and as well as our farm stand and CSA, and I used to be a market manager years ago.
Nice.
So
What market?
all things local food to people, I'm interested. And this is a concept I haven't been able to jump into yet, so cool. Yeah.
Thanks, Carrie.
And I'm Dan.
Mhm.
I could say I'm a grower, but on a part-time sort of hobby basis.
Okay.
But I've been tooling up so that I could go big or
Cool.
easy. But part of the issue then is to develop my market, place.
Mhm.
And the CSA is fun, or putting a table up at a stationary market, that wastes a lot of time.
Mhm.
So what I see potential here and what I'm curious about and why I'm still sitting here and I haven't walked out is if there is a model for like a little niche targeted, spot on, do your market and get out kind of thing, could that be something that friends who are now curious and looking at how things can be grown and brought to access people, what are models out there that we could draw from?
Sure.
What area are you in?
The Snoqualmie River Valley, between Falls City and Carnation. So beautiful piece of land I've got access to.
Yeah.
And I can grow gorgeous stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, at least for on my scale, But it's an incubator farm where there's like 6 other farmers there, and they're all doing their thing.
Oh.
We aren't quite organized yet to cooperatively put something together. They're all renegades and doing their own thing, and you can barely talk to them, because they're so busy doing their thing. But potential there to
Yeah.
join forces, or at least to create a common, I don't know, take meetings and all that. It's a nightmare to consider what it all would take. But
Sure.
anyway.
Sure. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing. So I'll try to abbreviate and tailor to those interests. So, first I want to give you a brief history of Tacoma Farmers Market. We were started in 1990, so we've been 31 years in operation. We currently run 5 farmers markets, including the mobile market. Our biggest market is Broadway, which pre-COVID saw as many as 80 vendors per market. Our East Side market is our like low income, low supermarket access neighborhood market. Point Reston is kind of a destination market, and Multi-Care is a benefit that we give to our biggest sponsor, Multi-Care Health System. And the Fresh Express is our mobile farmers market. So like many other farmers markets, we run a variety of small business incubation programs. We offer technical assistance to farmers and businesses and aspiring business people. So the mobile market is something that we started in 2020. It was really born out of the rising food insecurity due to COVID-19, as well as at the start of the pandemic. I don't know if you remember, just like widespread uncertainty about how the heck farmers were going to sell their products. And we developed this model as a grant-funded model to bring food from local farms directly to neighborhoods where people struggled to get access to fresh food. So we did this really with the assistance of Pierce County and CARES Act funding. The idea of a mobile market was something that Tacoma Farmers Market had been exploring for several years. I think if you are really familiar with food insecurity and food access, you'll know there are a lot of systemic issues that prevent people from accessing fresh and affordable food, and that is prevalent in Tacoma as it is elsewhere in the country. And we've been looking at our platforms, policies, and practices to start to address how we participate in the systems and structures that uphold lack of access to healthy food, and also what we can do to address that. So in 2020, we did it with CARES Act funding. Pierce County Council allocated the funding. We received it through Pierce County Economic Development. And I'll say that's one huge advantage of being an established nonprofit. Is government funding, and that's something that you might struggle to come up against if seeking to do that for a more profit-based model. We chose our sites based on existing partnerships and new partnerships that we formed with community service organizations that are well connected to the community. So we worked with Asia Pacific Cultural Center, we worked with the Eatonville Family Agency, we worked with Key Peninsula Community Services, and we really spread out all over Pierce County. So before all of our markets have been in Tacoma, we added 4 or 8, I don't remember at this point, how many sites we had in greater Pierce County, plus an additional handful of mobile sites in the city of Tacoma. In 2020, we gave the food away for free, and we distributed more than $300,000 of fresh produce and proteins from 21 local farms, and it all went to low-income community members in Pierce County. It was really sweet to see people lining up to get these pre-packed food bags that we made. I know a lot of people just can't participate in a CSA system, and this was a way for people to experience being part of a CSA, getting a weekly bag of very fresh, just the highest quality stuff without having to pay for it. People would not have a choice in what they were getting, and so people didn't always know, just like a CSA that any of us would buy. People didn't always know how to use the stuff, but other people in line would say like, oh, this is how you make salsa verde, or like, this is what this weird fruit is, and it was very nice for us to see and for us to relay those stories to farmers and to the county. So that is a point that I want to touch on a couple times, is collecting stories and data from people that you're serving. In 2021, we were lucky to receive funding to continue the program through the American Heart Association and the Reinvestment Fund, as well as Pierce County again. And we transitioned from a free model to a paid model. And this is the hardest thing that has happened as a result of the project, is permitting. Permitting and licensing for a mobile farmers market is bizarre. It is confusing for, it was confusing for us as an organization. It was confusing for the permitting and licensing agencies that we were working with, who had never tried to work with this sort of model before. It was confusing for the agencies who had tried to work with this sort of model before. So hopefully there will be some policies smoothed out at the state and local levels to help facilitate this. But it took months and months to get all of the permitting in order through the local health department, through the USDA, through the WSDA. It was very complicated. And so in 2021, we have done 6 to 8 sites weekly. We do home deliveries to senior and disabled residents of Tacoma Housing Authority. We offer home deliveries to victims or survivors of intimate partner violence. And we also give some food to just our local food banks. We've sold about $50,000 worth of produce, proteins, and we also added processed foods. So we're sourcing from the rest of our market vendors. You can find pretty much the full array of our farmers markets at our 2-tent market that we set up around Pierce County. And we offer a lot of the things that we do in our normal markets, like cooking demonstrations. We have an option for our sponsors to set up a booth. So Razor Scooters is one of our market sponsors. They came and they set up a booth and gave people free scooter rides and free helmets, which is really fun. And then we've also partnered with a couple other entities to do vouchers for free produce at some sites and serve SNAP ambassadors, which is something that it's a program we run that connects well-connected community members who receive SNAP EBT or food stamps to other members of their community to help educate and advocate for use of SNAP at farmers markets. Primary issues that we've run into with this model have included the fact that a lot of people actually don't have SNAP EBT or don't have enough SNAP EBT to even consider what we consider affordable pricing at the mobile market, even when we offer SNAP Market Match, which doubles benefits. So we know that there are a lot of asset-limited, income-constrained employed individuals out in the community who could be shopping at the market if we could either lower prices or if we could provide them with some sort of free or incentive program. So we're working on that. It takes a long time to set up and break down the market at each site. We typically do 2 sites per day. It takes anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes to set the site up and to break it down again. And it resulted in pretty much consistent overtime for our mobile market operator. In the first year of operation, it resulted in a back injury for me, tendonitis for someone else. So it's a lot of physical labor, which obviously farmers are well acquainted with. But for the purposes of our sites, the staff time is becoming cost prohibitive. And we were actually just awarded money from Pierce County, who again has been a fantastic partner in this, to purchase what's called the Farmer's Truck, which is a vehicle specifically designed for mobile farmers markets. Strongly recommend looking into it. It has a fold-down side, so you never have to set up or break down. You just roll the side down. It's beautiful. And it has refrigeration, it has power inside, and it has a hand washing sink. So it's fantastic. And also helps with some of the local health department guidelines. Another problem that we've had is just community engagement, and we'll talk a lot more about that. So when setting up a mobile market, I recommend 3 primary things. You should look at it from a whole systems approach. You should engage in mission-based community engagement, and you need a really solid model and business plan in order to carry this through. So when I'm talking about a systems approach, and here I'm going to tailor more to the 2 of you. So indulge me, answer some questions, and I want to know, I guess, what you know about a systems approach to problem solving. So systems approach to community development, community organizing, that sort of stuff. If the issue that we're trying to solve is food access, food insecurity, or food apartheid, what are some structural factors that you think might influence the availability of fresh food?
Being located in a food desert, being immobile for some reason, obviously the resources and as far as money goes, and there's that huge gap of people that fall between being able to receive SNAP, WIC, any of that,
Sure.
and folks who just still can't afford that food, so kind of finding that sweet spot is always a challenge.
Yeah, no, I think you've touched on
Okay.
a number of things. So where people are located, so you're looking at geography, people's income levels, so you're looking at economics, and both of those things absolutely factor into the historical and current day political landscape of how neighborhoods were designed and who designed them. Just a sweeping overview of the problem, I think, is really helpful in getting situated in what you're actually trying to address, and if you or your organization is the best one to address it. There are also a number of different considerations you want to take into account in terms of how, like, what framework you want to use to approach the problem. So we've gone with kind of a combination of market-led framework, so we are selling the produce, we are selling the rest of the products, but we also are investing in underserved and underrepresented communities. So we've made a commitment to our funders to source from at least 50% BIPOC, LGBTQ, or women-run farms and small food businesses. And other ways that we could do this would be investing in land access for people from underrepresented communities. If you want to take it a step further, you can start looking at supporting community water rights or rights to seed. And then the overarching question that I think a lot of us come to the TILP conference for is, what do we do about corporate agriculture? So you can look at it from a very small scale and all the way up to the major structural barriers that exist in the United States.
Forgive me,
Uh-huh.
but when you say a systems approach, then in analyzing whether the mobile market model was something that would work for you, you had to understand what place within these larger systems a mobile market would be, and you had to decide whether that's indeed what you were able to provide. Is that what you're suggesting?
Thank you. That was a very nice summary.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the next sort of we're talking about systems. One of the things that I like to focus on when I think about systems is people, right? So is the community that I'm trying to serve. So I'm looking at a socioeconomic system. I'm really looking at how it impacts people. So I'm looking at barriers, I'm looking at assets, and I think primary to this whole mode of examining and making decisions about what kind of intervention you want to make into a system is community engagement, and that's something that we'll cover in a minute. But I think there are a lot of different tools that you can use to take a systems approach. So I think a lot of those come into the community engagement process. A lot of those are involved in creating your business plan and your business model. But looking at barriers, assets, for us, it was really looking at the risk involved in this sort of enterprise, the financial risk to the organization, and also just sort of the how our organization presents itself. So what has been our historical engagement with these communities that we're trying to serve, and are we going to be able to make a long-term commitment if that's what the community wants?
Now, this presupposes that you had access to lots of county-provided data about what potential niches would benefit from this. So you were partnering quite considerate with the county-wide agencies and so on. Is that so? Were they part of your systems structure that you?
The county was absolutely part of the planning process, but more on the farm side. So we have long-standing relationships with community service organizations and with our local farmers and with our government. I think where we really leaned was the community service organizations for determining which sites to visit and which products to buy. And I would say that all comes into the sort of like program design. I think another way to look at systems is thinking about your program design, your program delivery, and your program evaluation, and where those considerations of barriers, assets, all of that come into in your design, delivery, and evaluation process. So yeah, community service organizations we really rely on. But you know, being around for 31 years, we already had a lot of relationships in the community. And one thing I would say in your case is, like, are you, I guess, figuring out, and maybe this plays into, yeah, I guess this bit about systems as well, but also more about community engagement too. Like, is a mobile market right for your community? And when you think about your community, are you thinking about your farm and your co-farmers on the incubation farm? Are you thinking about the people you're serving?
That's just it. Where I sit,
Uh-huh.
I would need to be developing relationships with communities that then I could potentially provide produce
Sure.
for. And so there's a whole, I'm like 3 steps removed from this process here.
Sure.
But you're giving me insight, I believe, into what these processes are. So if I do engage with them, what am I getting myself into, kind of thing?
Mhm.
That's, I guess, anyway.
Yeah, no, and I think too, like you can make this harder or easier for yourself, right? So you can say, I want to grow culturally appropriate food for the immigrant community that lives in South King County, and that is a hell of a lot of work to do the community engagement and show the respect needed in order to do that work well. Or you can say, I know this new tech money is in Duval, and like I'll just set up a home delivery service. Very little engagement involved, more just standard marketing. So yeah, you can do what you want with it, but I think the whole systems approach is really about making it work both for you and for your community, whoever that may be. So I really want to emphasize mission-based community engagement, and the reason I want to do that is I personally get so excited about new projects. I love creating new programs, and then I have to like see them through, right, forever, or until they have lived their useful life. And you really want to make sure that you yourself have that personal level of commitment to it, and also that your organization can sustain it. And so this is, like I said, a conversation Tacoma Farmers Market had been having for some time. And there were some conversations on the board. We decided to move forward with it. The funding was available, the need was there, and so we went for it. I think one thing that it really turned up for us, though, is the organization hadn't done strategic planning in a very long time. And then this spring 2022, the board is going to engage in a strategic planning process, in part because this program in particular really has pushed the organization to look at diversity, equity, and inclusion as part of our mission and where that fits in. Why community engagement? Because it shapes, like I said, it shapes who you engage and how you engage them. I think best practices in community engagement really help you maximize the impact that you can make by providing relevant information, by creating these relationships with trusted partners, and trusted partners can do a lot of the work on the ground for you with the communities that you're trying to serve. It can help ensure equity and long-term program sustainability, and I think it provides mutual benefit if you know what everybody's in it for. One of the ways that we've seen benefit, just like the most just, I don't want to say dirty, but like practical maybe benefit that we've seen is we've gotten some really killer letters of support from our community partners when we apply for grants, and that is something that helps keep the programs running. So when you're looking at community engagement, you want to be looking at what level of engagement. So are you just networking? Are you asking for cooperation? Are you asking for collaboration? Are you asking for contracted agreements? Are you just going to sit down and have a chat. And that can really help shape the sort of the intention that you go into these engagement processes with, but also what you get out of them. And then how do you engage the community? So, which stakeholders are you engaging? Are you setting some sort of participatory research model? Are you just doing community surveys? One of the most helpful things that I've done with community engagement was just go out to lunch with people. So does your organization have a budget to go out to lunch? Does your organization have a budget to pay people to take a survey? Like, are relevant considerations. So what do you two think are some important factors to consider when attempting to engage? Let's start with underserved or underrepresented communities as, in our case, predominantly white organization. I know TILF has been trying, but has a history in the community as well.
I missed part of your question because I can't hear very well.
No
But
worries.
sorry.
No, you're fine. So I'm just wondering, like, what you think some factors to consider are when engaging underrepresented communities.
I think their cultures and how they view food access and what that looks like. I think being mindful of the culturally relevant foods that they will be looking for. I think being mindful of language barriers, and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What about, so you said that it's been hard to pin down your fellow farmers. What's something?
Well, in terms of us collaborating together on anything productive as a group.
Sure.
Everybody's doing their own individual type thing, and we wave at each other as we go by, and that's the extent of any kind of organizing there.
What land are you on?
It's historically it was called the Beyer Farm. A man named Dan Beyer, 65 acres on Snoqualmie River Road, and he was a market gardener himself, a market farmer, and he retired, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years, 15 years ago maybe already, 10, and he wanted to see the land accessible to people, other farmers, beginning farmers potentially, and so part of the issue with his property is the river is eating away the back pasture. So there's consideration in terms of how the county was managing the water problems in the valley, and I think the county stepped in and purchased the property so that they wouldn't be faced with potential lawsuits from property owners who were going to complain about their water management practices that were destroying their property, kind of thing. So that's kind of a boon. So it's county-owned property that the Snow Valley TILF organization and their Experience Farming program has.
That's what it is.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. I have heard good things about that.
They're good people generally.
Okay.
Yeah. I've never met them because I joined during the COVID year and they were like a moratorium on any face-to-face meetings.
Oh.
So I have one contact person there who's the guy that got me in the door, and
Sure.
he's usually there when I show up, but he's busy doing his thing. Dan, I can't talk to you, I got too much to do, and other farmers over here doing his thing, and so I go and have a great time doing what I'm doing. But in
Great.
terms of like young farmers starting up a farm business and developing markets and so on, they're bringing new farmers into the system. They've got another couple of there that are, getting going. There's just no leadership in terms of how we can support one another to develop a focused marketing plan, because everybody's going their own direction, kind of
Sure.
thing.
So it's less like business development and more just land access.
Yeah,
really.
yeah, very much. So I'm on my own, but now I've got people that I know in their business connections who are hitting me up like, Dan, I've got all these people that we can access. Do you have a Venmo account? We want to get money flowing at you, and you can sell your stuff, and I want to put out a fresh sheet and all this sort of stuff. And I'm just going, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's where I sit anyway.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of engaging with communities, though, that's something I read about in the newspaper and I see, but I have no personal contact with it. You know, I don't. And this fellow's taking my picture.
I know. I'm your stalker, right?
Yeah. I'd like to think that I was really photogenic here because.
Oh, I'm sitting here because it's your good side.
Ah, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
so
Okay.
I'm sensitive to that.
So this is a whole other ballgame. You know, other people that I know, oh, Dan, you're growing great stuff, well, why don't you give it to the food bank kind of thing? And that's such an oversimplified concept. And sure, maybe you can drop off a couple of boxes of things at the food bank or something like that. But from what you've shared with me just now, there's so many more layers to this that could be plumbed and explored in terms of really engaging, and to what extent getting to know what's out there would be my first step.
Yeah.
And then really seeing is how might I fit with what's existing there.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big deal.
Yeah,
If
and
that's-
King County has so much support for
Yeah.
local farms. One thing I know that's happening right now is it's at least a survey with the intention to move forward on an aggregator in Kent. I mean, they are really trying to bring together all sorts of diverse communities to aggregate produce, create a commissary kitchen where people can be buying from the farmers who are aggregating at that spot, and then they have space to process the foods at that spot. Food processing for food banks, and I think that sort of thing is, you know, it's already happening in King County, so there's no need to reinvent the wheel.
And there's several organizations that you can market directly to the consumer with and all of that
Yeah.
sort of thing. But the idea, when I ran a CSA a few years ago, a lot of the people said, well, yeah, I get your box and it's great and all that, but what if you just set up a little market where we could come and buy what we want?
Mm-hmm.
And so there is an appeal to people following the shopper's model kind of thing. Now, you mentioned your experience when you started out and you handed people a pre-packaged product, and you know what that, you know, that's, I guess I've seen that occur. But this concept of having a targeted location where there's a known community that has a desire for what you have sounds interesting. But now you've got me stimulated into recognizing that there's a lot to be learned if I'm going to engage in that type of thing. So anyway, I'm rambling now.
No, that's good. I'm glad it was stimulating.
Oh yeah.
And this, I mean, this is probably more relevant for Carrie than for you, but once you have your community engagement sort of plan figured out, I strongly recommend from the very beginning data collection. This is how you get money. This is how you get money to fund your projects. This is how you figure out if what you're doing has any impact whatsoever. This is how you figure out if the community likes what you're doing. And designing your data collection plan around a logic model or a theory of change that really helps support your specific program. So in our case, our data collection is focused on basically does having access to this fresh food help people actually consume more fresh food, and do people feel healthier because of it? Because just because we plop something down in a neighborhood doesn't mean that people are going to use it. Even just because somebody buys some food doesn't mean they're going to cook it when they take it. It might just end up in the trash.
So when you collect that data, is that survey tools?
Yeah, so we do surveys. So we do customer surveys at the market. We do surveys for the home deliveries that we do, and we provide a gift to every person who takes a survey. So we have, I think we're doing, I can't remember if it's $5 or $10 for every survey that's taken, and it's $5 or $10 in market tokens, so they then have to spend it at the market. But yeah, so we do that, and then our funders also have requested access to our community. So they've asked us for contact information for our community members. This is something they're taking very seriously. They want to know that their money is having an impact. It's also something that's really helpful when dealing with the city and the county. So we can say we've sold we've purchased this amount of money from local farms worth of produce. We have brought it to this many locations. We estimate this many people have been served. And all of that is really what gets you funding. And without funding, this program absolutely could not run. I have some projections that say maybe it can be self-sustaining in 2023, and after seeing how it functioned in 2021, I know that we need to drastically change some things in order for that to happen, or we need to just count on it never being financially self-sustaining, which is maybe a word of caution for you in setting something like this up.
I have a question. Are you, so you went from gifting to sales. Are you any sort of hybrid now? Is it just sales?
That's a great question. So yeah, we primarily do sales. We do have vouchers specifically for residents of Tacoma Housing Authority buildings,
Okay.
and that was also funded by the American Heart Association.
Okay.
We've tried, continue to try to get a like a Fresh RX program going with local health systems.
Yeah.
It's really complicated, and what I would really like to do with that sort of program is to basically be able to collect biometric data, because I think that would just be such powerful evidence to give to funders. But there are all sorts of confidentiality issues and just, capacity issues for the healthcare systems to be doing that. So.
Our farm stand is a pay what you can model.
Yeah.
So we, everything's priced, and, we take this, SNAP, do market match, all that stuff, and FreshBooks, but, we formatted it to where we basically offer up to $20 of a produce discount for folks, so they still can come and pick it out, and, the majority of people still pay the full price, but knowing that there's that produce discount,
Sure.
has been, I think, it goes a long way, and in the end, it really balances itself out.
Sure.
But
That's a great idea. Yeah, I know we've looked at matching WIC also, and I think we are next year possibly going to be able to give seniors $5 worth of stuff every time they come. Again, all grant funded.
So you mentioned that Multicare is a partner with your organization, and there you just mentioned a whole health aspect of that. Have you considered engaging with public health entities or mapping out the health zones or whatever and seeing if there's an impact and using their data or something like that as a way to support what you're doing?
Yeah, the project actually, so part of the evidence that we used to start the project was a mobile market readiness assessment that the county health department did.
Wow.
Basically a giant community survey determining what neighborhoods would benefit from one, what the use rate might be, what sorts of products people might want to see there, and what impact they thought it might have on their health. And we've done that, we use that combined with community health needs assessments that were done by the county and the local health systems to determine, at least in part to help determine where those mobile sites went. I don't think I've gone further than that, talking with the health department about this specifically. They're very supportive of the project, but COVID, and I don't
Sure.
know that they have capacity to do much more than they already have for us at this point.
So you got some early indicators that this might be a target area, but you haven't done any retesting to see if there's been an impact directly on the community served, is that?
Well, we have not done the sort of like rigorous qualitative interviews that the health department and the health systems have done. We just have our little community surveys. We ask the 10 questions about.
But now you drew from the community health or the county health department. I'm assuming at some point they'll have further follow-up in these communities. And would they be doing some of the data collecting that could?
I would hope so. If we could find a partner to help us do this data collection and analysis, I think it would be fantastic. And there's definitely potential for that.
Wow.
We'll see.
That'd be really cool.
It would be very cool. I love me some data. Yeah, so thinking about data, we collect both quantitative and qualitative data, so demographic, revenue, just the sheer number of fruits and vegetables eaten, improved feelings of health. One important thing that we have found people are curious about is whether recipients or users of the sites feel like shopping at a site and being able to use Snap Market Match frees up income. So that's a nice data point to be able to put in funding requests as well. And then when you're collecting data, think about who you're sharing that data with. And for us, you know, it's funders, it's community members themselves, it's community service organizations. A really interesting thing that we were able to do this past year was we saw it. So in 2020, we had a site at our Asia Pacific Cultural Center. In 2021, we also had a site, but started charging, and we saw use drop significantly after we started charging. We shared this with the Asia Pacific Cultural Center, who's a great community partner who literally calls and texts members of their community to remind them when it's a market day, and asked them if they had any suggestions for what we could do to get the numbers at the site back up. And they said, you just need to give it away for free. And it was so helpful for us to hear that, because then we knew to go find funding to be able to give the food away for free. And so while we haven't transitioned to giving food away for free at that site, what we were able to do was use that information to request from the Washington State Department of Agriculture funding to do home deliveries for the Asian and Asian Pacific Islander community. So we now do 25 home deliveries a week for the people most in need in the community. So APCC has identified the recipients for that. They're happy because we listened to their needs, and we're happy because we got funding to keep paying farmers to pay our staff, and the people are actually getting the produce rather than having it just sit unpurchased at the site. Oh my gosh, so complicated. There's so many different ways to run a mobile market. Basically, and I mean, I think I put this on your little handouts. These next questions here. So many different things to consider. I am not a business planning expert, and I am not going to go into any depth. But what I will say about this is you should have one, and you should decide whether your program needs to be financially self-sustaining or not when you are creating your business plan. And you should have a good logic model or theory of change to back up what you're doing. All of these things will help the program, they will help you in your conversations with community, and they will help you with funders. This is just where it gets super complicated. The logistics of running a mobile market, it's very expensive. It's very complicated in terms of doing community engagement, outreach, and marketing in the actual market season, and we're doing this year round. So it is perpetually complicated. It's very difficult to get people to come out to it. We've explored all sorts of different methods to do this, and most recently we are seeking funding to do a text service to remind our shoppers on market days or before market days that the market is happening. The permitting and licensing is it is a bear, and there are just a lot of people needed to run this program. I think for us, as long as we continue to get funding to run it, it is well worth our investment of time and money. It was a fun challenge in retrospect. In the moment of the actual program design and seeking funding for it, it was not fun, but we got there. And I think the logistics are something that you can tweak based on community surveys, on engagement that you continuously do throughout the process. So like any small business, you will be losing money for a long time, and it helped me to in advance try to figure out where our resources were. So looking at funding, looking at partners, and I think for a nonprofit, the best thing that I can recommend is engage with your county and city councils. You can be real advocates for food access and for local farms with the data that you have collected and continue to report. And there's a lot of money out there right now. There is a lot of money to address food insecurity, to address infrastructure issues, and they need to be told how to spend it. So strongly recommend looking towards your elected officials. I also would recommend doing a pilot before launching a full-on program, making sure that you have your SMART goals in line, that you have your SWOT analyses down, and that you've given yourself adequate time to actually do the planning and engagement that's necessary for a successful program. And then the community engagement never ever ends, nor should it. This is a really sweet photo that I just wanted to end on. We do free cooking demos. This was, she's actually a community health ambassador from a local housing development, and she makes bánh xèo, which is the Vietnamese pancake thing, and she did it at this mobile site, and all of the kids were just entranced. And she gave out huge samples, and it was a huge hit, and sales doubled in that day. So, strongly recommend, super fun, and very tasty. And that is all I have for you.
I have a question.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Your sourcing or aggregating, I know you have your sourcing standards, but are you sourcing, I'm assuming it's from existing vendors, but are you doing it like market day, or is it a whole separate sourcing?
So that was one of the logistical issues that we have continuously had to work on. So in 2021, or in 2020, we had to source exclusively from Pierce County Farms, and I personally farmed in Pierce County for a while before taking a job at the farmers market, and so I had existing relationships personally. We also had existing relationships as an organization, and the county strongly encouraged us to purchase from a full range of farmers. And so not only were we purchasing from my friend farms and farms who might be small or beginning or selling at farmers market or be women run, we were also purchasing from the massive farms that exist in Pierce County. So you know, the ones who are like, this is hardly worth our time to sell to you because you cannot buy enough volume. But if you take, I don't know, like 1,000 pounds of cabbage, then sure. So logistically, 2020 was easier in some ways because we just had so much money from the CARES Act to do it for free everywhere. We didn't have to worry about selling it. And we had somebody driving the van or the refrigerated truck, who would just drop off these like major orders at food banks when we couldn't pack them and give them out. In 2021, we brought in, like I said, the processors, and when you bring in processors, everything has to be approved through the county health department and through WSDA. So that got more complicated. It's hard to get vendors to send you things like a food processing license, certificate of insurance, that sort of stuff. And then just in terms of picking up and dropping off, we try to tailor to the farmers as best we can. So we do drive out to a number of farms to pick up from them. Some of the farmers are buddies. They put all their stuff in somebody else's truck and somebody brings it to us. But we do have a program coordinator who's by far the bulk of her time is spent purchasing and like organizing the walk-in. We did have to install a walk-in, so we have we outgrew it in the second month that we had it. It's a 6x8 walk-in that's in the church where our market office is located.
Like a pool bot setup, or?
No, it's a full
Proper?
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah.
It's nice. But yeah, it's too small already. We outgrew the refrigerated truck pretty much as soon as we bought it, which is why we're looking at that other truck model now. Yeah. But infrastructure investments like that, I mean, like the truck we can sell. The walk-in, we probably just need another. and that's just a negotiation with the church. Space.
Well, congratulations, it looks really impressive here from what I've seen, what
Thanks.
you're doing.
I'm
Yeah.
very happy with it.
That's amazing, it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's good. So just some quick stats, but part of the reason I'm happy with it is we've served 45 zip codes worth of SNAP users.
Wow.
12% of our shoppers are English language learners, 14% are Black or African American, 70% of women, 70% of the shoppers are women, and 33% of our sales come from SNAP. So that's the kind of data that we can report, especially when we compare it to Pierce County demographic data, which shows 7% of people in Pierce County identify as Black, 50% identify as women, and so we're getting good data that we're reaching the communities we're trying to serve. So I'm pleased. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
Too bad you got the last day, the last session, the
Oh,
last
it's
day.
okay.
They should have had you at a prime time kind of thing.
That's very
Attention.
sweet. I probably would have just rambled on about systems approaches for another 20 minutes, so I think we may have spared people something.
Oh.
No, I think you have something to offer, some of your experience.
That's very nice.
And the fact that you were a farmer, you know the audience, and you know, maybe you could entice them with future endeavors that they can, you know.
Yeah, I'm always curious, you know, we do about 800 bags of local produce a week that
Mhm.
we don't we distribute to community partners who distribute.
Yeah.
And that's year round, but I definitely have thought more about, you know, we're based at the Rainier Beach Farm and we don't ever leave the farm.
Uh-huh.
So just other ways to get that food out to the community if it's not through community partners doing the distribution themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, is there room for us to pop up and even, you know, if I don't have the funding, which we're generously funded through, City of Seattle has a sweet and beverage tax,
Mhm.
and then King County Best Starts for Kids.
Hmm.
But doing partnerships like with other organizations that may have the funding, so
Sure.
like we have groups that'll basically like buy bags from us, but doing a model like this where it's people can like self-shop. So popping up at a wraparound services organization,
Yeah.
like a market, but it's the organization would pay us,
Yeah.
and it's free for the folks shopping. I think that's another way to.
That is the case for one of our sites at a Tacoma Housing Authority residence.
Okay,
is they're
the
paying for us to
vouchers
be
they
there.
do.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
What's your graduate work going, what are you going into?
Applied economics. It's not fun. Not fun yet, anyway. Yeah.
I'm impressed.
I was gonna say,
It
that's
is
much
like-
different than, farming and market work and all of that.
But will eventually bring me full circle back to doing rigorous program analyses and evaluations for food access and
Yeah.
farming programs. So.
Yeah, if you love the
In a
data.
government capacity, you think, or nonprofit capacity, or?
I'll take whatever anybody wants to pay me for. Let's put it that way.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Well, you'll be an asset, I'm sure.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank
This
you.
is impressive.
Cool. Yeah, I got to choose the, I don't know, talks that I wanted to facilitate, and this was definitely one of the ones I wanted to
Aw,
facilitate.
That's very
But
nice.
cool, thank you so much.
My pleasure. I wanted to add also, so the model that we are doing now, which is the paid and the self-select and all that, it means that, at least at a couple of our sites, we have a few of our sites actually, we get a lot of higher income people coming to, like Key Peninsula becomes just shit food access, and there's a real demand out there for fresh, local, high quality food, and it has the lowest SNAP use percentage at that site, but
Right.
it has the highest sales at
Yeah.
that site. And I think there's something to be said for a program that's trying to support not just food access, but also local farms.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like half of my work, I call it food access work, but really we have the buying power
Mhm.
and we have our own sourcing standards, like focusing on immigrant refugee farmers,
Yeah.
that sort of thing too. So it's as much as supporting the farmers as it is getting the food out to people, and yeah, that's good. Cool. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for hanging out.
That was like out of all the whole weekend I got a nerd out from this. So thank you.
Yeah, and feel free to shoot me an email anytime. I'm happy to.
Yeah, I'll give you, I don't know,
I could have brought friends.
rustle up your info, but, oh, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.